Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining me and all of us today for this session. I just want to quickly have a sound check. If you can just put your hand up, and I just want to see if you can hear me. Oh, great, I see some hands. Thank you very much. Right, so like I said, thank you for joining me for this session today. I'm the product manager for financial reporting, and with me today I have Mohammed, who's going to cover the product manager for the technical items, and he's also going to cover Caseware Working Papers. And then after that, Christian Stein will cover the idea and the brand new client inquiries. So as always, please note that your microphones are muted and the cameras are turned off. I would have loved to see all of you in person, but unfortunately due to bandwidth, it might make it a little bit difficult. Please use the chat or question function during the session. We will have a few breaks to double check them, and there will also be some of the team answering those. Mo is currently busy putting the links for the release notes and the SME release notes for IFRS and SME in the chat. It's also on your email from yesterday, but it's just putting in there for your reference. If your signal is lost, please exit and enter the webinar again. And then they also say the app is better than the browser if you maybe have some connectivity issues. But again, as always, the recordings will be made available. Also, as you know, before the session, there was a probe and an Audit International session that was running concurrently. If you have missed those, the recordings together with the session will be made available. Normally just give us a few days to clean it up and put it on our YouTube channel. Right, so the agenda for today is we're going to start with the financials, and then we're going to the working papers and the technical items. Then we're going to hand over to idea and client inquiries, and then we will go into closing about 2:30, just depending on how the day goes. For this session, we're going to do the financial statements for IFRS and SME, and then I'm also going to cover what's happening next. Right, with that, I'm going to switch off my camera just so that I don't look at two screens the whole time and that you can have my full attention. So for IFRS, the first changes that we've done is the non-current liabilities with covenants. So this was the amendment in IAS 1, and that became effective for after 1 January 2024. So remember again, all the new standards is for years beginning. So that means if you're still busy with a June year end for 2024, this won't be effective. It's only for actually from December this year. So how did that change affect us? So there was a few notes that was affected by this. It is our loans from group companies, our loans from shareholders, our borrowings, and significant judgment notes. There was no new mapping for this. It is only the disclosure, and I'm quickly going to show you how that looks in the software. You have to bear with me. I've got a few tabs open here, so I just have to check that I've got the right one every time. Right. So as you see, we've got the loans from shareholders loan, and now to account for this new disclosure, you have the non-current liability with covenants here at the bottom, which is a type-in figure, and then there's also some disclosure here at the bottom. Please do remember, and there's also some guidance here, that this is really just explanatory text, giving you some examples of how it should look, but you will really adopt it how it is relevant to you. The other notes to have exactly the same disclosure if we look at the borrowings and the loans from group companies. If we then look at significant judgments, then you'll see also you'll have your section here. And if these notes are on, like my loans from shareholders, you'll see that it has the loan references there included already. So that was the first change that was in IFRS that has come through and that is effective. The next one is the supplier finance arrangements, which is again the amendments to IAS 7 and IFRS 1. And this was also effective from 1 Jan 2024 years beginning. So here there's a little bit more that's changed. Firstly, we've included some mapping, which I will show you now. And then you also have it in your borrowings and trade payables note. And we have a brand new supplier finance arrangement note. And again, then the significant judgment and the cash flow worksheet. So let's quickly have a look at that section. Right, so firstly, if we look at the trade payables section, let me quickly jump there. So you'll notice here that you have this line here, trade payables and supplier finance arrangement of the 1.7 million. You'll have also in the borrowings note, if we quickly have a look at that, you'll also see that you have an additional line now there where I've put in the 3 million. Remember the 3 million and the 1.7, and then you also have now, if I go back to the trade and other payables, but you have it in both notes, you have the supplier finance arrangement here, and we've created this brand new note. So this is really to summarize whatever is happening in the two notes, that you have one place where all the information is collated. But like you can see, there's already your 1.7 and your 3 will be already showing up there from those respective notes. Again, you've got your arrangement here at the top. We've got A, B, and C with some example disclosure of how your wording needs to look. And then you also have your amounts pulling through here. You've got some more information that you can disclose here. And then you also have this non-cash portion. So this is a figure that you can type in. As you guys know, we've got our Caseware, the new cash flow worksheet that was, I still talk about the new one, but it's probably around 2 years ago that was introduced. And if you type in the figures there, then it will also pull through to your cash flow worksheet. So let's quickly jump to that. And then I can show you there's the 300,000 and the 500,000 that pull through, which you won't normally get on your TB. So that's normally a transaction, and that is why it is a typed in figure. So I'm just going to close my cash flow worksheet because there were further amendments made there while we go to the rest of the changes. Right, then the next change for IFRS, as always, is the new standards. And there's 3 new standards that were issued during this time, so from last year that we released until now. IFRS 19, IFRS 18, and then the amendments to IFRS 9 and IFRS 7. So like you guys can see, these 3 are effective only from years beginning 2026 and then 2027, the first 2. So we don't anticipate a big change for IFRS in next year's release for 2025. Just a heads up on those people maybe want to invest some time in a firm template or on some disclosure. It does not look like there's a big compliance change for 2025 at this stage from the standards perspective. We always know the regulators and the Companies Act are still going to come through at some point, but from the standard perspective, it will only be in 2026. Big change there will most probably be IFRS 18, as I'm sure you guys are all aware, but luckily at this point, still going only in the future. Then the next change that we've also made, and if you were in the probe in the Audit International session, you might have already heard this, was on the assurance reports. So firstly, it's been updated to the new SOPS 3 that was issued on March 2024. And then also because we now have consolidation available on Probe, the consolidation feature will also be on the audit report. So if you do activate your consolidation in your financial statements, you'll see everywhere that it pulls through the consolidation as well. We have also included in the information store the public interest entity to make sure that you have that option available for the assurance reports. Do remember, for the assurance reports, as well as most places in the financials, we do try to keep consistency throughout. So for that reason, if you do have a statement name that you have changed and you do want to, and it looks different than the SOPS 3, it is most likely because you have changed that in your financial statements. Right, with that, I'm just going to take a quick pause. Somebody's just asking to zoom in. If I go back into Caseware, I'll zoom in. And then somebody's asking that there's a patch for the trade payables not required. I will reach out to you just to double check why you have required that patch. I'm not aware of it, and just see what if it maybe was a file specific issue. Right, so that's the questions. I just wanted to double check if there's nothing up until now, because the big one is a small change, but it quite had a big effect, and that is the basis of preparation. So the board has changed their trademark for the accounting standards, and my assumption is because of the sustainability reporting, and they want to have a clear definition about the sustainability reporting and about the accounting standards. So we have went through a few documents, and I've got a guidance from different regulators across that was shared with us on what the interpretation is of this. And there has been a few, so I'm going to take you through the thought process and then also how you can amend it if you require it to be differently. So the first 4 that I gave you there is the first options that was the options that were basically made available that you'll use in different instances. So first I want to share that there is no effective date for us. So it's not like if I say from 1st Jan 2024 you have to use the new trademarks. What the board is saying is that as they go along, they will update all the standards with the new ones. So the IFRS 18 and IFRS 19 that has come out, they already make reference to this. The bottom one, the IFRS accounting standards, is issued by the International Accounting Standards Board, but the old standards won't have that in. So there's no definite effective date, but it's definitely something that between IRBA and PSYCO that they are putting out there that we should do. Then I do want to reiterate that, like I just said with the assurance report, that we normally work with this one place for the change. So how the standard has worked in the past, in the info store you have the drop down that you can select IFRS, or you can select the entity specific, and the same in SME, SME or entity specific. So there's one place to change it for consistency throughout the financials. So that is how the software has worked, and that's how the software is intended to work. And then another thing to note that's important is the order of pages. So we ship our template standard with the director's report and responsibility before the auditor's report, but we do have clients and we do have the capability for you to sort that, especially for IFRS, before that. That is quite important. So because if you make one change in the info store, then it's going to affect all of that. So what we then did is we looked at SOP 3 as guidance and also beta feedback to say what is the one that we're going to put in the info store for our users to pick. And we went with the bottom one. And why we did that is because that was the wording that was used in SOP 3, and that was also the beta feedback that we got. It doesn't ever mean that there might be instances that you want to use the one with the registered trademark, or that you want to use just that without the as issued by, and that is completely up to you. So I do want to just show you that quickly if you have that in an engagement file. So if I go to my director's responsibility, let me just scroll up a bit. You'll see the first instance in this case is this one here. Now, say for example, I wanted to put the registered trademark in there, then it is just quickly, oopsie. Then I can do it like that. But you'll see as soon as I do that and I click on enter, then you'll see that the second one and all the consecutive ones also put the R in. So if you want to change it and you want to change to something differently that we in the info store, you can just change it in one place and it will change everywhere else. If you, however, don't want to have, you just want to show that maybe in the first one, and the second one you want to show just that section there, then it would be recommended that you then just take it out of the box and then you can just paste it there. And then it will show like that. There is only a very few instances that we do refer to the standard. It's in the director's responsibility, it's in the auditor's report, and it's the first paragraph of the accounting policies. That really is 4 or 5 instances. Again, if you have a firm template, please consider what works best for you and you can change it. But as you can see, it is quite easy to change if you do want to change it one specific place for whatever the interpretation is on that. Okay, with that, let me just go back to this section. Right, just want to double check if there's any questions on that, but I see there's nothing. Right, then the next change that we've made for the financials is the super insert. So the first thing that we did is there is a few places to go to use your super insert. And if you haven't heard about the super insert, it's a green plus at the top where if you want to tailor some notes, and I'll show you now how it looks. But in the past we had that you could right click insert line, or there's a menu at the top that you could use it. And for consistency, we've changed all of that you go to the same place, just so that you have one place where you can go to. And then we've added 3 new functions: the details of the properties, the loans to from shareholders, and the text table. So let me quickly show you that. And we really believe that this will help to make your life a little bit easier when you are in a situation where you need to customize some files. Right, so the first one that I'm going to show you is the details of property. So if you stand on this note, and it's not just this note, it's also like your investment property note, you also have your details of property. So it's in all those notes you can use this function. You now have the option to add this table in here. And if I talk about the super insert, I'm referring to this green plus here at the top. So if I click on that and I go to table, bottom, then you'll see I have a new option there. And let's just give it a second to execute. And you'll see there I have details of property and details of property for IFRS. And that's just for the 3 column of the 4 columns or the 6 columns. That's why there's a difference there. I just want to reiterate for this super insert, but also wherever you use the super insert function, it's very important to stand on the heading if you do want to add a section. So either on a heading or a subheading and not in the text section. So for example, this one I've included here already. If I, however, was standing on property 5 and I would have included another one here, what would happen? It is form part of that section actually. So if property 5 for any reason is then switched off, my new section would also switch off. So it's very important whenever you use the super insert to always stand on the heading or the subheading of that note to make sure that your on-off works accurately. Okay, then the next one that we have is your loans from shareholders. Loans to shareholders. And you'll see here that you have this note here. So for this one, you have to go into builder mode. And the reason why you have to go into builder mode is that you can see the mapping numbers that you have in the side here. And what will happen is this is especially important if you create new mapping numbers. So for this one, we've only got 10. So we do have quite a few requests to have more than 10. So what we said is if you want to build it, you can just go here. You can create your mapping, and please read the FAQ that we've done on the mapping if you do need to do it, especially for flipping mapping numbers. And then, yes, you're all linked to map with terms for to shareholders from shareholders. For SME, because it's one note, at this point, it will just be to from shareholders. And that is to take into account the different ways of how the flipping work. We also have this input row with terms, but we really don't believe that you should use that because we rather would want you to create the mapping number. But because we have the normal input row for consistency, we have created that one, but I don't expect that to be used a lot. Right, and then our last note, our last super insert that I want to show you guys is this one here. So it's a plain alphanumeric table. We had quite a few requests from our users, especially in the director's report, that they want to use this. Just want to have a text column with different, if you want to disclose some director's information or something about your subsidiaries or anything like that. Again, a table that you can use at any place in your financials. And then just read, if you read the guidance, you'll see there is some guidance on how to adjust the width if you don't use all your columns, that you can see that. Right, and then let me just double check if there's any questions on the super insert. There's one question, Elise had asked, how do I get to jump to the notes so quickly? So if you click on F5, you get the little menu, the go-to bookmark, and then you can just start typing and it takes you like to trade and other payables and you can jump in. So a tip for Elise, thank you for the question. Right, let's switch builder mode off. And let me just jump back to my presentation. Sorry, this is now gone to the wrong place. There we go, super insert. Right. Then there has been a few improvements and I am going to go through them and then you can, and I'm going to show you then some of them in the financials. The first one is the going concern and events after reporting period. So what we did there is we took out the COVID because there's not really financials that is relevant to anymore. And then there was an error for some users that if you, and you might have experienced it, like a printed paragraph that didn't show on the screen, but it was actually the buttons that wasn't switching the one section off if you were choosing it. So we have corrected that as well. Then this one is a new feature that we've done. and which I'm sure a lot of people are excited about as well, which is the carry forward header for all the on the director's report and all the other entities as well. So we did have some feedback that this it wasn't working correctly or anything. This is something that was never in there already. It was actually just in the accounting was in the note because we didn't expect it to be more than a page in the director's report, but it does happen. So that's a feature that we have included now as well. Then for the tax, we have done two features. The first one is the assessed loss in the taxation note, and I'll take you through that. And then we've also corrected an assessed loss calculation. For the cash flow, the cash generated from operations note. So what happened there is if you right-click properties and you change the names for finance costs and investment income, so that's a typo on my side, then it didn't retain. So that is now corrected, that right-click properties will retain. And then you also have, if you are IFRS, it didn't happen very often, but you had more than 9 digits, then it didn't show all the 9 digits. So we just corrected that as well. And this was also a very specific use case that might have been relevant to you. Is if you replace your normal income statement with your full detailed income statement, there was a few things that didn't work like expected, and we got that market feedback this year. So the first one was that your footer and your SME was showing still your supplementary information, so we made sure that that was not there anymore. And then also on your assurance report, it also referred back to your supplementary page at the back, the paragraph that's related to that. So we corrected that as well. But then I think the biggest one that impacted a few clients was if you did a filing from existing and you did replace your income statement with a detailed income statement, then it would have been blank after you did your filing from existing. So that is now correct, so that you can update or filing from existing, and that will work. Then the next one is the Zimbabwe currency that's updated to ZIC, because that changed the currency again, and the Naira current symbol was again corrected to be the right one. So that was a few years ago, but it's something that came in again, so we've just fixed that. And then we have this nice feature that I want to show you, and I'll talk about the import accounts without mapping will unmap when I do show it. So let's quickly, I'm not going to show you everything, but I do want to just jump through a few things. And I'm just going to make my screen a little bit bigger. It feels very big for me, but I think that will help you guys to also see it. Right, so the first change that we've made, like I said, now it does feel a little bit big for me, let me just make it like that, is events after reporting period and the going concern. So you will see that we've deleted all the items, and also the 2 buttons that are referring to us here. If you switch on this one, then this paragraph is printed with these 2, even if you didn't select the button. So what we've done, took out the COVID, made sure that's right, and we also did update the notes at the back, that they look exactly the same like these in the front. So they will replicate exactly, or will have the same options in the buttons. So don't replicate it yet, but they have the same buttons. Then I'm quickly going to show you the print preview, and just with the carry forward headers, how that looks. And we'll just give that a second. While I'm waiting for that to load, I'm just going to double check because I see there is a question about the super insert that I missed. But Sino is asking if it's only available in builder mode. So Sino Yard is only available in builder mode, and the reason for that is because you have to actually go and select your mapping number. So for us to have the real estate, to have the drop down option to select the mapping number, we do have to do that only in builder mode. We are looking at the whole builder mode functionality, and I definitely will reach out to you as well about it, but that's the reason why it is only available there. Right, okay, so events of reporting period, going concern, and then like you see, then your account, that will automatically on the next page update to your continued. I'll just have a big space now there. So that was one of the features that I believe some people have done quite manually. Right, then one of the other changes that we've done is the tax that I referred to. And as you guys will know, is in the information store, you normally include your assessed loss. So if I go here to the bottom, then your assessed loss normally pulls through here to this note. But what actually happened last year, and I'm just going to refresh your memory, if you go down to your tax computation, it's not very, you have what we've added here was this sorry, the summary of assessed loss. And this is to do with that 80% rule that came in. So this is a request from our market, and we said, right, we're going to put that in for you. But similar to the cash flow worksheet, if we have a document that's outside of the financials, this doesn't always refresh because it's a separate document. So now if you have inputted a figure in the information store and you haven't opened your tax comp, then the figure in your income statement note wouldn't have been correct. But if you open your tax comp and you do use it on your engagements, then you have never would have experienced this. So then what we said is, right, even if you don't update your tax computation note, we do want this note to update with the correct figure here. And what we've done on this, we've just included here for you a little guidance, and there's a refresh button. So if you don't want to every time go to a tax comp and see how it is, then you can just click on the refresh. Right, so then the next thing that I want to show you is or talk through about is the import accounts without mapping numbers. It will unmap. So if you have a TB, and I just have an example TB here, and it has your mapping numbers exported. So the use case for this is probably if you have got the working TB from a corporate client and now you're doing it as an accounting firm or vice versa, or maybe it's rotated between firms, or maybe you don't have access to the old file anymore, but you can at least get a working TB that's got the mapping number in. What would have happened in the past, although, is if you have new mapping numbers or mapping numbers that we have deleted, if you have then imported it, assigned it, and you go to assign mapping numbers, then on the right-hand side, it would have created that mapping numbers with that big not applicable. And what made that difficult, and I don't have now the screenshot to show you, but it would have been on this side with the not applicable. What that caused is that your financials would have been out because actually those account numbers doesn't exist and doesn't have the whole hierarchy because it wasn't created in a proper manner in the working papers file. So what we're doing now with those accounts is we are unmapping them. So we're not creating that mapping number for you. They are unmapped, so they're on the left-hand side, so you can very clearly see that these two are not here. And if I go back to my just TB quickly, you'll see that it's that account there. So if I look for this mapping number in this mapping structure, you'll see that I can't find it. So this was probably because of IFRS 16. We've deleted some old mapping numbers, and that's why it was in my TB or my Excel TB, but it was not in my file. So if you do import a TB, a working TB, you have any unassigned accounts, then most likely it is because that mapping numbers doesn't exist in the file. All right, let's quickly jump to the next thing. Then connector reports. With Caseware, you do get connector, and connector, if you haven't heard about it before, it is an Excel interface that you can use with your Caseware database. So what we've decided to do for to show the users on how it works is we created some sample accounts here. Now, I don't want to call it management accounts. It really is sample accounts. And what it basically does is break down your balance sheet and income statement for you with the mapping that you have in your file and populate the figures. You can go and use it. You can use this document in any of your files. But it is important to note this is just an example accounts. We can't facilitate the possibilities of all of how management accounts are interpreted within the market, although we've had questions about it, because it varies quite a lot. Some people want budget, some people want forecast, somebody wants year-to-date, just want the monthly movement. But this is really to show you what is possible with Connector. There is a short video in the beginning, a link to a video that will show you like how you can use it yourself and how you can build this reports. And also you can reach out to the consulting team if you want to. But this is really just to show you, to give you an idea of what is possible. So like I say, for this one, we've done a balance sheet monthly and a balance sheet year to date and then the same for the income statement, balance sheet and year to date. And as you can see, all these figures then pull through with Connector. There is like a little write-up there, and there's the link if you want to go watch a video and if you want to see how this works. And if you want to learn some more, please reach out to your account managers and they can also help you with that. Right, then on the interim financials, before just lastly, there was 2 changes that we've made there. The first one was IS1. So we've made a change to the accounting policy on IFRS last year. We've done now the same change on the interim financial statements, that there's consistency through them. So if you do use the interim financials, you'll see that there. And then we've also updated the same mapping changes that we've done for the supplier finance arrangements in borrowings and trade and other payables. Remember, for the interims, we only have the notes but have your figures that pull through. So for that reason, the other disclosure that we've done in IFRS won't be on interims as well, because it's not a requirement for IAS 34. But those, because it is mapping, will be impacted. Right, and what's next for us for the financial statements is we have our XBRL release in October 2024. So if you do use XBRL, you'll remember that last year we didn't update to the latest taxonomy because there were some technical requirements. Those technical requirements is now in the working papers that we've released today or yesterday. And we will do then an XBRL update in the October for the 2023 and the 2024 taxonomy. So please do look out for that. And also, if you do want to get more involved with testing or anything like that, let us know. But this will be communicated to you closer to the time. I also just want to reiterate, you would have gotten an email about our extended support hours, which we are very excited about. So we are now open from 7 to 7. So if you're an early worker or late at night, or for our clients that are in Africa, you can now reach us during those times. We also have a book your appointment function, so you can actually book an appointment with one of our consultants for half an hour for a time that's suitable for you. So please look out for the mailer and you can see that all the information is on there. And then also, just for everybody that was part of the Get Ahead, or if you did miss it, our whole Get Ahead series that basically covered working papers, Audit International, financials, and probe quite extensively. There's 23 sessions that we did. They are all available on YouTube, so you're welcome to go and have a look there. If you do want a refresher or you haven't done anything and you just want to go and have a look, you're welcome. They are all on YouTube. Right, so thank you for joining me today. I'm going to hand over to Mo, and while I hand over to him, I'm just going to check if there is any questions that I can cover that. But I'm going to make him the presenter so long that he can set up. Okay, we have a few questions, and I'm just going to, because we do have a bit of time. If you need to submit XBRL this month, will it still be compliant? Yes, it will be compliant. So the taxonomy is normally valid for a few years, and we work very closely with SIPS to make sure that we keep that in place. So the XBRL will still be successful if you submit it. Why is there no secretary on the general information page anymore? Danelli, I don't think that that's a change that we've done. So if you do have it, then maybe it's something that was added by your firm champion, but let me have a look and then I'll come back to you on that one. Okay, just want to see if there's anything more. think that is it. If there's any more questions, you're welcome to pop them in the chat and I'll just reply on the chat to it. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Mo. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Nika. Good day, everybody. Excellent. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this morning. I think I'm really excited to take you through some of the changes that we made from a technical aspect across the various areas. So from an agenda perspective, I think we're going to start with our initiatives on speed. I think you spoke and we listened in terms of speed. I think we keep on adding content and the financials and other products start becoming slower and slower. And we really needed to start looking at it. So we'll take you through some of the speed initiatives that we're undertaking and rolling out today. Secondly, we're going to look at the firm template guide. So the firm template guide was released last year and we received very positive feedback about it. There's 7 key changes that I'm going to walk you through. After that, we'd get into the data retention. So obviously from a data retention perspective, we want to make it as easy as possible for you all to roll forward a file and go from one year to the next with doing as little work as possible. So we'll take you through the changes that we made there to facilitate a better experience for you guys. And then we'll go through the Caseware Working Paper changes. So there's 6 key changes there that I think I want to take you through. So I'm going to turn my camera off. And let's start with the efficiency and speed gains that we've made. Okay, so firstly, I think at the end of last year, we noticed that there wasn't enough usage of the optimizer within the financial statement. So I'm going to quickly just run through a bit of that now, just to reiterate what it does and how it works and how you all should expect to use it. Then I think from a speed perspective, we concentrated in this release on unbloating the file. So we went through the databases that were being shipped, and we took out all unnecessary records that have been accumulated over the years. And that really did make certain areas of the product faster, and I'll share some of those findings with you. And in this release, we're starting an initiative of putting out a speed guide. So this is a new document that we've created. The speed guide obviously will be downloadable from our success community, but how we envisage it working is that there's a specific set of steps that you can run within the file that's slow, and it'll help either by unbloating the file, by taking things out. And once you go through those steps, and if the file is still slow, we want you to send those files to us so that we can unpack it for you and add to the speed guide with a view of releasing a full version of the speed guide in October. In the October release, over and above releasing a final version of the speed guide, we're also going to be improving the speed of probe, particularly the update. Our option there that we're targeting to release is to implement a probe documents optimizer. So essentially, any probe documents which is not required for the file you're in will be deleted, and obviously you'll be able to bring it back quite easily should it be required. So speed is very important for us. The more efficient you are, the faster you are at your jobs, and we're really taking this seriously. We're looking at this as these steps as a journey that we're going to go through up until October, and continue with that should it be needed next year as well. So I just want to reiterate what we did with the financials optimizer. So this was what we released last year in October. It basically means that we noticed that there was a big correlation between how fast the file was compared to how much of content you had in the file. And we couple that with the fact that not everybody needs all the content in the file at once. So in most cases, most files only needed about 40% of the content. So we did some benchmarking, and what we saw was that the file was significantly faster when you had about 40% of the content in or less content in. And we wanted to unlock that benefit for you guys. in an easy way. And that's why we developed the Financials Optimizer. So what the Financials Optimizer does, I'm going to quickly share my screen and take you through it a little bit. So in the financials, you've got this optimize button. What it does is it launches the financial statements optimizer, and it lets you bring in and take out notes and accounting policies from your file. Remember what we're working towards here through this dialogue is we want to have the most streamlined file as possible. So if anything is not being used in this file, we want to remove it. The change that we made towards the end of last year was that we automatically suggested things that should come out from the file. So if you look at loans to from group companies, it's got a red X next to it. What that means is that this note doesn't have a balance, but it's in this file, so it's not being used. So we'll automatically take it to the left so that if you go next, it'll automatically remove that, so you'll have less content in your file and your file will be faster. I think what the other key area that I want you to do or to know about is that obviously, firstly, if there's a next to something, it means you can safely take it out of your file. But further to that, I think in this notes column, if you scroll through and if you see something that is not in green, so green indicates that the note has a balance, so it has to be in the file. There's no way that you can take that note out. But if you've got something in this column and it's black, this means that this note does not have a balance and it's switched on. So in this instance, it's investment property at fair value. If we go to the financial statements and I am on the investment property at fair value note, you'll see that it is not being used at all. It's completely blank. And then our next note that's turned on is intangible assets. So this note should definitely be removed from your file because it's not serving any purpose except slowing the file down. So I want you to notice if I turn that note off and if I relaunch the optimizer, it's going to suggest that we remove the investment property at fair value. It should obviously also suggest that the loans to from group companies is not being used, so we should remove that as well. So we try to automate as much as possible the streamlining of your files. How we try to do that was by suggesting things for you to remove from your file if they're not being used, because while they're in the file and not being used, they just may slowing your file down. The other important thing to note about this whole journey is that when you do a file new from existing, we will, if for example you don't have anything mapped to investment property at fair value, we will not bring that note in. So when you do a file new from existing, it'll look at your TB, it'll determine that you only need these 10 or 20 or 30 notes, and it'll bring those ones in, and it won't bring in the ones that are not required. So that's the other key change to automatically streamline your files, which we made at the end of last year. I believe there's some questions. I just want to open up the chat. Just making it a bit bigger. This one. Okay. If we switch a note off, is that as effective as using the optimizer? Excellent question, Grant. Switching a note off is not as effective as using the optimizer. Switching a note off basically keeps the note in the file, but just hides the content. It only shows the heading. So when you take it, so switching it off will do that. We'll keep it in your file and just only show you the heading. The optimizer, when you use the optimizer to optimize the note out, it'll actually take the note out of your file. It'll leave the heading so that you can always turn the note back on should it be required, and the note will come in from the library. But switching it off is not as good as using the optimizer. Excellent question. I see the next question here is, when creating a new file, there were notes that were added and sometimes not needed, like depreciation, employee costs, and VAT, and 5-year summary notes. How can I create a file without those being turned on? So what we do in how we determine which notes come in is we look at the map number. If a map number is being used in that note and that map number has a balance, then we turn that note on. In that journey, if you don't want that note there, you have the ability of switching it off. We won't let, if it does have a balance, the optimizer won't let you remove it from the file, but you can at least turn it off. We go through each section, or each note is linked to a section of the map numbers. So I feel that you shouldn't, it'll be very rare that you get instances where you're getting notes which are actually not needed in the file. If the content is removed on the Caseware Optimizer, how do we get it back if we need it? So if content is removed through the optimizer, for example, this biological assets on the cost model is actually removed. If I right click and go on, it'll bring it back. It's as simple as that, because we've got a library of all our notes and statements, and it'll just go there and get it. If you use the firm template guide and you customize your note, we save your customizations to the libraries as well. So if you as a firm put in special customizations, add a new table, etc., and you use the firm template guide to create your firm template, when you roll out that firm template to your firm, when your users go right click on, they'll get your content, obviously in addition to our content in this note, because the firm template guide lets you save all the changes to the library. If you remove a note from the file and let's have a balance, will the note return to the file? So it won't let you remove any notes that do not have a balance. Okay, I think that's all the questions we can take for now. Any other ones I will answer in the chat. But thanks for that. Those are excellent questions. So back to our speed journey. So the financials optimizer is what you should already have. Then for this release, we concentrated on unbloating the Caseware file. To that end, the Caseware file is made up of multiple databases, and one of the databases that we concentrated on was the CV database. The CV database, now remember your Caseware Working Papers file, it houses the financial statements, it houses probe, it houses CTM, and anytime a product needs to reference the CV database, it queries it, and the bigger the database, the slower that query was, and it would result in a slower user experience. So we went through that database and we deleted all the not required records, and what we found in specific, and I want to show you, these are the speed benefits that we gained just by doing that. So from a financial statements perspective, the opening speed of the financial statements, we used a big MSCOA file for the benchmark testing. So I expect in smaller files you'll get much better results, but we were getting a 2-minute, almost 3-minute opening time when you open the financial statements, and that reduced to 1 minute 40 seconds, so improved by about 50%. As you all know, or maybe as some of you may know, that when you open up the financials the first time after doing creating a new file, it has to run reapply formatting, so it does take a bit longer. But the subsequent opening is when you open up the second, third, fourth time after the initial first opening, we got it down to under a minute. I think historically it was more than a minute, and now we are sitting on a large file under a minute, which is excellent news. The other areas where we saw a speed improvement by unbloating the CV database was on the turndown notes with balances, which went from a minute to 47 seconds. And on rounding, when you switch from rounding to ones to thousands, we saw it go from 2 minutes to 1.5 minutes. So these are big changes that we saw. This was the next key change that we could make that'll have a multiplier effect on multiple products. Then when we made that change, what we saw within probe itself is that refreshing the risks table It used to take over a minute, and that one really significantly improved, and it got down to 6 seconds. The raising a risk also went down from 15 seconds to 9 seconds, and linking a risk to a control went from 2.5 seconds to 1.5 seconds. So this was the first step in our journey of unbloating the file. CV database was a very key area, one of the bigger problems that we needed to tackle. It was a large number of changes that need to be made across multiple templates, so it did take us a while, but I'm glad that we actually got it out, and you all can get the benefit of it from this release going forward. I think the only important thing to note is that we didn't you'll see the benefit on new files that you create. You won't see the benefit on existing files that you have. The moment you create a new file, it'll come through with less CV database records, and you'll see the benefit. The second thing that we're introducing for this release is the speed guide. Now, we're looking at the speed guide as the one place that you'd go to whenever we want to make your Caseware file faster. So we're going to start collating all the information that we have at our disposal to make the your Caseware file faster in one place, and it'll be in the speed guide. I think the important thing to know here is that this is a work in progress document. I mean, we've put in a lot of steps already. However, I want to work with you guys towards the October release to look at your specific slow files and see if there's steps that we can add to this based off the findings that we have in your files in the market. So if you do have specific slow files that you can share with me, we'd really appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to show you the speed guide now. Your starting point on the speed guide would always be to go to our success community. So we are going to be continuously updating and creating new versions and uploading it to the community whenever we work on a file and there are some findings. But I want to make sure that you all know how to access and download the speed guide. So if you go to our success community and you type in speed guide, you'd get to see the download option or the article. When you click it, it'll have all the information that you need. In here, it'll show you the revisions, the different revisions that we're going to have. And if you click this button, it will download it. I think the important thing to know is that you just have to unzip that file, and then you'd be able to drag and drop it into your document manager. So for example, I unzipped it a bit earlier, and then I dragged and dropped it into this file, and now it is here. Okay, so what is the speed guide and how can it help you? So over and above automatically getting the benefit of unbloating the CV database records in your file, there are other things that you can do to speed up your file. And we're trying to collate them there, and there's specific steps that you can follow. So the autofill is always recommended, especially in files that are lagging from a performance perspective. So if you click this button, for example, you'd get the autofill screen, and you just click the autofill now button, and it'll automatically do the autofill for you. The second step that we've added in the speed guide is the ability to remove unused accounts. What essentially happens here is that, especially on certain products like our MSCOA product, for example, people import monthly, or in a month they import multiple times, and they do a lot of reallocations. And we've seen that you could end up with up to 1,000 to 1,000 to 5,000 unused accounts in your file, purely on the basis of the number of times that you've imported and the reallocations that have happened. And all those accounts start unnecessarily making your file slower, because they don't have a balance, they're not being pulled anywhere. So by clicking this button, it gives you the ability it'll automatically go and remove all those accounts. So the speed guide will help you unbloat your trial balance from the number of accounts perspective. Another potential area that can slow down your financial statements is within those accounts that are left is the balances that are being used in those accounts. So often what happens, you have a file and you just keep roll forwarding it, and you'll see in working papers, we keep carrying the balance. So I'm going to go to the trial balance now, and you'll see that over here, we've got obviously the current year figures, and then there's our prior year 1, our prior year 2, our prior year 3, and prior year 4. Now, in most cases, nobody ever is in a file that they're preparing, especially from a financial statement perspective. Nobody's using these prior year 5 and 4 balances. So with the speed guide, we've given you the ability to quickly remove those balances, because it does have a speed improvement, does make a speed improvement when those balances are not there. Obviously, the only reason we're taking out because you're not needing it in your file. So you saw I've clicked the button. It asked me if I want to back up the file first. I'm quickly going to go back to the trial balance. And just like that, you'll notice that we don't have any figures now in the prior year 4 and the prior year 5. So that's another step that we've taken towards unbloating your Caseware Working Papers file and making it faster. The next option that we've given you the ability to do or use is that a particular segment of our market only drafts financial statements. And as you know, our templates come with audit product built in, specifically Probe. And we wanted to make at least the people that just do drafting a little bit faster. We've given you the ability to remove all Probe documents that are in your file. So if you click this button, it'll automatically go and remove all Probe documents in your file. And the benefit here, for example, is that when you roll forwarding a file, instead of the roll forward process taking 4 minutes, it actually brings it down in most cases to a minute. So there's a significant speed improvement in the roll forward process, which if you only drafting financials and you're not actually auditing and don't need Probe, then you can click that button and get that benefit. The other steps that we've added and are going to add is from our support department, particularly where we've analyzed cases in the past and we've seen specific things that made a difference to client files. So the first thing I think that we added in the list is the default printer. Sometimes if Caseware PDF is not your default printer, it does take longer to open up the financial statements. So if you're experiencing a long opening time, we'd like for you to try it. And obviously you've got the help button there to show you how to do it. A very interesting one that we picked up recently was a new Windows 11 feature. We experienced a file where the saving time was taking 60 seconds, and the day before it was taking less than 5 seconds. What we noticed was that there was a specific setting in Windows 11 which was ticked, this turn on fast startup. And it actually never, what this means, or what Windows 11 does, is that it actually never really does a full clean startup. Once this option was unticked and we restarted the PC normally, we were back. The Caseware Working Paper file went to a 5-second save of the financial statements. So we're looking to really use this document to share with you our findings through support, through the various other initiatives that we have to make our files faster. And we really need your help. So if you want to share any files that are particularly slow so that we can unpack it, please get in contact with me. We'll be more than willing to look at those files and see if there's a benefit that we could share with everybody through the speed guide. The only other thing that I want to show you, you will see it in the speed guide, it's not as prevalent now, is that there's an optimizer tab where we're actually looking at, if you click the button, it'll obviously populate the table here. And it tells you some interesting things about your file. Like in my file, 71% of the notes are not in the file because only 28% of the notes are actually needed. So it gives me just a high-level indication of how much of content is in the file versus not in the file. And I'm started to put certain of the key areas here. So how many tables in the note, how many cells, how many of those cells are writing to external CV database records, etc. And because we might be looking at using this data, especially for your, when you've customized things and added it to the financial statements and we look at your files, we'd be able to start determining if you all are building it correctly. Could that have been, it could be introducing anything from a speed perspective? Is there things in here that we should be building differently to make it more efficient and faster? So that's what we'll ultimately use this tab for, but I'm seeing a lot more work being done on this towards the October release. However, it is already available, the first part of it. I'm just quickly gonna check if there's any questions on the speed guide. Please could you show us how to get the speed optimizer guide again? Sure, no problem. If you navigate to the success community, so that would be success.casewareafrica.com, and you type in speed guide, you'll see a speed guide download knowledge article that comes up. And in here, you've got a click here button, which will start the download. In terms of the overall speed of their file, is there any way to decrease the loading time for print preview? We have looked at the specifically the loading time of various areas. If there's we actually at the moment reviewing the results of benchmarking all our code. One of the areas is print preview. Today, I can't specifically tell you that there is something that you can do automatically or that we've done, but that is something that we are looking at. The results of the benchmarking of the scripts is going to provide the required insight for that. Okay, I will answer the rest of the questions in the chat. I'm just struggling to read it a bit. So, just want to. Okay, so we've covered now the speed and the efficiency gains that we want you to, and the journey that we're on to try and get you to a better place. Obviously, you know what you'll already have in terms of what we've already released at the end of last year. You know now what we've got in this release in terms of the speed guide, and you know what we're working towards the October release. So if you want to work with us and we're improving that process, please get in contact with me. The next area is the firm template guide. So the firm template guide is something that we released at the last year, and it really made a difference to anybody that was creating a firm template. I think that it was a very haphazard process that we had previously, where it was a Word document that you had to follow the steps in, and you never knew which step you were in, and you never knew if you did anything correctly. So for anybody that hasn't seen the firm template guide yet, I'm just going to quickly put it on screen. So the firm template guide is basically a step-by-step checklist almost that you need to follow when you have to answer certain questions that would show different things. So example, if you're creating a new firm template for the first time, or based off a new file, you'll get a specific set of steps to follow. If you're updating an existing firm template, then it's a different set of steps to follow. And we basically grouped this in a sort of a workflow. The other thing that we've did is we've automated as much as possible. So, and I'll get into this now, where you can click buttons and it'll automatically go and do things for you. Like for example, switching all the notes on in the financial statements was something that was done manually in the past. Now with this release, we can you can switch all of them, all the notes and accounting policies on automatically by the click of a button. So for anybody that hasn't seen it, please, or hasn't used it yet, and you are creating a firm template, please use this when creating a firm template. It takes you through every step that you need to follow, and it gives you automated tests where you just click the button and it'll tell you if the test has passed, you get the green tick. If the tick fails, you'll get the red cross, and then you know where to focus on in terms of fixing. So that's what we released last year. What we did for this year is we just made a few key changes that I want to quickly take you through. So something that I noticed while sitting with a few clients was that they were putting certain special characters in the file name. The special characters would cause a problem for you when you did your repackaging or when you were updating the file. And often this was introduced right at the beginning when people were creating their firm templates. So what we've done now is, if you've creating a firm template and you're using the guide, obviously, when you open up the firm template guide, in a file that has special characters that are in the name, we pop up an alert to alert you that these characters are not allowed. Please, can you go and rename the file? So we're trying to prevent you from making a mistake, like doing too much work on the file and then at a much later stage only picking up the error. So we want you to pick up the errors as soon as possible, as early as possible, so that your life is as efficient as possible. So that's the first change we made on the firm template guide. The second change that we made on the firm template guide was we created a restrict concept on update when you update a file. So what I mean by that is, in the financial statements, if you've customized any area of the financial statements and you don't want it to change, we gave you the option to right click and restrict updates. What that does is, and we've given this to you all a while ago, what that does is it puts a lock icon here so that you know that this section, even if we run a file and we run an update and there's new content available here, this section won't get updated because you did some specific customizations and you don't want to lose that. So we brought that into the process by telling you that before you update your file, please make sure that any customized content that you want to keep is restricted. So that's another change that we've made. What we've also done is taken away the manual step of going and having to open up each and every accounting policy and note. Okay, so everything's on here. So what I'm quickly going to do is I am quickly going to turn everything off. So in our first release, we had a button that you could click, because once you customized everything in the notes and accounting policies, you didn't want to leave everything on. The step that you had to do manually was go to each and every accounting policy and turn it off. And same thing with the notes, and it was very time consuming. So I clicked the button, and as you can see, the script finish, execute, and just like that, all the accounting policies and notes have been closed. The problem was when working with clients was that they wanted the same functionality but to turn on the notes. So that's the new option that we've added there. If you click this button, it'll also go and turn on all the accounting policies and notes. And obviously we did this because we want you all to be as fast as possible. Another key change that we made for the firm template guide in this release was at specific points in this journey of creating your firm template, we needed you to refresh the cash flow worksheet. So for example, we introduced this refresh of the cash flow worksheet in two places. So the first place is after you import a trial balance, I think we put in a step so that you can refresh the cash flow worksheet. And just before you package your firm template, we put in a step for you to refresh the cash flow worksheet. The other improvement that we made is that people said that when they were customizing or making changes to certain areas of the financial statements, it was a bit cumbersome to go jump to the right place, because they'd normally click here, it'll go here, but you actually want it to be in the independent auditors report, for example. So what we did is we gave you the normal go-to that will automatically take you to the place that you want to go to from the firm template guide. So it's a basic navigation change, but it it does give a better user experience. The other thing that we've done is we've given you a new automated test. So this test, I think maybe the first one I want to talk about, is the ability to find incorrect KLI sections. So that wording is a bit deceptive. What this actually fixes, or let me say what it fixes first. So if anybody's ever tried to use our super insert, for example, and they said they want to insert a new table under in a particular node, and then they would get a KL deletion error. So obviously that could be introduced when you create a firm template. So we won't ship with you getting that error, but it can happen when creating a firm template that you could unexpectedly or unwittingly introduce that error. This test would automatically find sections that could potentially cause that problem and fix them for you. So this is where we start trying to be a little bit different and be a little bit more automated than we were last year with the automated tests. We're over and above just finding the errors. We also want to fix it for you. So that's the fix incorrect or find and fix incorrect KLI sections. The other test that we introduced now is the find blank sections. So in my file, it's telling me that this test ran, got a red cross. If I click the red cross, it opens up the location to the results of the text file. I think the other thing I want you to note is that what we've done is, with feedback that we got, it was hard to associate this results file to the test that ran. So now the same name that you see on the test will be the same name of the results of the text file that it generates with the results. So in our example here, I've got a red X next to find blank sections. It's telling me that CUS section 001 is a blank section. So sometimes it does happen when you're customizing, especially if you go into design mode, that you inadvertently create a blank section. So all I did, or all I need to do, is go into design mode, do a find for the section label that it's complaining about. It's telling me that it's blank. And as you can see, it jumped to that section. It's telling me that this section is blank. So I can delete it. I might have wanted to create that section when I wanted to put some content in there. I'm just going to delete it. I'm going to go save. And when you rerun the test, automatically it tells you, okay, problem solved. You don't have any blank sections anymore. So those are the changes specifically regarding the firm template guide that I wanted to take you through. This guide, I think, is really important and gives you a strong sense of comfort that the package that you create for your firm is actually correct. I would strongly recommend anybody that's doing a firm template to please use it. I just want to see if there's any questions here for the firm template. Okay, no, I'm not seeing anything here immediately. So I'm going to move on to the next part. If I did skip anything, I will come back and answer them. If I did miss anything now. Okay, but once we've gotten past this firm template guide, I really implore all of you all to use it. I think there's very good value in using it in terms of it speeds up the file creation, your firm template creation process, and it makes the job a lot easier. So now that you know the changes that we made from a speed perspective and what we're going to make, you know that the changes that can help you create your firm template and what that entails. The next area I think I want to take you through is the data retention changes that we've made. So data retention is a very important concept to us. What it essentially means is that if you run an update on your financial statements or your file, or if you create a new file based off an existing file, we want to retain as much data from that existing file as possible. So to that end, a request that we got in was to do data retention on right-click properties. So what do I mean by that? Is that in the financial statements, often what happens is you'll change wording using right-click properties. And you'd put in your new wording and you'd say, okay. And that new wording was custom wording to you, and that's what you want that to say. Historically, we never did data retention on anything that was changed via right-click properties. So from this release going forward, so any file that you create now would obviously get the speed. A new file that you create will get the speed benefit through the unbloating of the CV database, and any things that you capture or change via right-click properties from this release going forward will be retained when you do an update or if you do a file new from existing. So we make this change so that you don't have to do, have to do as little work as possible whenever you update or do a file new. So that's the first change we made with regards to data retention. The second change that we made with regards to data retention was specifically on the cash flow and its related notes. So this cash flow statement, obviously with the cash flow introduction of the cash flow worksheet, we moved to it being input, the prior years being input, and the related notes as well. And what we noticed was that when you did a file new from existing with a year-end close in particular, the data retention on the cash flow and its related notes weren't as good as it could be. So we spent a lot of hours refining that and retaining as much of those cell inputs as possible so that you have to do as little as possible in your new file when it was created. So that's the second change that you can expect to get from this latest release on the data from the data retention perspective. And the third change that we made from a data retention perspective is on the rounding. So file new from existing, this rounding limit was not being retained. So now we'll automatically retain this rounding limit when you do a file new from existing. Even if you did an update, it was already being retained. It just was missing from our file new from existing. So those are, excuse me, those are the changes that we've made with regards to data retention. I'm going to quickly jump to the Caseware Working Papers. So from a Caseware Working Papers perspective, there were a couple of changes. I think there's 6 key changes. I want to take you through some of them. So the first change being on the protection setup. In Working Papers, new version of Working Papers, if you go to protection setup, what you'll notice is that we've given I'm looking for that button. Okay, what you'll notice is that we've given you 2 new options here. One is to set protection on and one is to set protection off. Previously, it used to be one right. So you could give somebody the ability to turn protection on and off. We've separated that. So obviously you can give more people the ability to turn protection on and fewer people the ability to turn protection off. So that's the first change I think I want to show you from the Working Papers perspective. The next change from a Working Papers perspective is that on the history and milestones, we've included this tick box, which says display document insertion events. Essentially, what previously you'd only see a list of file created, file accessed, and now you have the ability to see files that were inserted into the document manager. Then from a lockdowns perspective, what we've done is we've given you a new tick box here to set the engagement to read only after lockdown. What that means is that all the documents within the document, within the Working Papers file will get marked and set to read only when this option is ticked and you perform a lockdown. The other changes that I want to highlight from a working papers perspective is we made the error messaging a bit easier, especially for first-year clerks. What often happens is that you save a file to a location that has a very long path, and then the folder, it's a folder within a folder within a folder, and there's basically a limit. It's 260 characters, and you used to try open up a file that exceeded this limit, and it would give you an error that didn't make any sense to you. And as a first year, it was very daunting, and you phoned support, and then they ultimately told you that please just go and move your file to a shorter location, to a location that has a shorter path. So we're trying to give you that error message detail in the chat so that it reduces the number of support calls that you'll have to make. Hopefully it makes a big difference. The other important area that we've changed is on the annotations, especially on the trial balance when it is set to be consolidated view. You can now show the annotation column as well. The last most important change, I think Ninka did mention it to you, but I think it's important to reiterate it. From a working papers perspective, when you import map numbers, we're going to unmap the accounts which are associated with a map number that doesn't exist in your file. The benefit of this flows throughout all products, obviously on the financial statements and on Probe in terms of figures not showing up on your lead sheets or figures not showing up in your financial statements. This is a key area. These are one of the things that we did to hopefully address that issue. I think with that, I'm done with my part of the presentation. I want to thank you for everybody who's attended so far and use our templates and use the latest versions, obviously, to improve your practice. Thank you for that. If you have any suggestions or feedback or things you want us to change or make better, please get in contact with me. I'd really like the insights. And obviously, I want to say a big thank you to the Green Mambas, Black Knights, and the A team for all the hard work that went into getting out a meaningful release. I'm quickly going to double check if there's any questions that haven't been answered. When working on a prior file which was overwritten, will that be fixed in the current file or must I create a new file? So when you say overridden, I'm thinking that you're either using the right-click overridden in builder mode, but I think I'm not understanding this question 100%, so I'll be in contact with you, Gerard. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to take a small break before we hand over to Christian Stein. It's just until 12:30, so it's just a 5-minute. It's just a quick break to stretch your legs, fill up your cup of coffee again. If you're like me, you always have one on hand. And we will be back then with the rest of the webinar, specifically pertaining to IDEA. Thank you so much.
Hi, hope everyone's back. So let's continue with the next part. So now we're moving into quite a few exciting things as well, because I'm now going to deal with some of the new products that you guys might not have seen before. So where we are in the agenda, we're now going to look at our Idea Easy add-ons and then client inquiries. I think we'll be ending a little bit before 2, but let's see how many questions we get. Just as a reminder, I've seen quite a few questions coming up around the Zoom settings. So for those of you using the GoToWebinar app and have it actually installed on your machines, when you look at the screen, you should see a screen similar to this, and you will see that most of you will have it to scale to fit, and that might zoom or condense the screen a little bit. So you're welcome to actually go actual size, or select zoom to and pick a size that is more applicable for you. So just addressing that zoom issue, because also the idea screens that I will be showing will be quite small. We can't make that larger, we're working with databases there, but you can have a look at your own zoom settings on your machine and put it at a setting that's comfortable for you. Okay, so let's start with the Idea Easy add-ons. So Idea Easy add-ons is really an initiative from our end to make Idea more user-friendly and to bring the whole ecosystem into one place. So we have gone and developed 5 easy add-on modules, and we call it Easy Extract, Easy Import, Easy Convert, Easy Integrate, and Easy BI. So you would normally import information into Idea, then you would do the analysis on it, and then you would do the reporting. And we've now broken those steps down for you in a bit more granular steps to also help you through the process of getting the information extracted all the way to reporting on the information. So let's quickly go through in theory what this does, and then I will show you what it looks like in the product. So first of all, we start with Easy Extract. So Easy Extract is basically a tool that we use that you provide to your clients, or if you are a corporate, you would use it yourself to extract the information you have in your system. So the current ERPs that are supported is Syspro and Sage 300. So if you have one of those ERPs or a client with one of that, you can download the Easy Extract or have them download the Easy Extract on your behalf, run it, link it to your or to their database, and then extract the information. That Easy Extract will extract all of the information from those 2 ERPs, put it in a nice little zip file, and password protect that file. So if that file gets transmitted, it should be safe and no one should be able to access the data. Then when we look at Easy Import, Easy Import then takes the information that we have zipped from Easy Extract, and it then imports the information into Caseware Idea. So one click, and then we import all of the information for you into Idea. Then if you are a corporate and you're familiar with your data, or you know how your ERP works with the data, you can actually stop there if you wanted to. But if you're not too familiar with the data, you can go into the next step and use Easy Convert. So Easy Convert takes the information, the different fields and records from all the tables that we've received, and we then go through a mapping process and we convert that into a standardized data format. That standardized data format can then be used by Easy Integrate to then perform certain procedures on that data, because it is now standardized, and we can then bring that data from Caseware Idea back into Caseware Working Papers. And then the last step in the process is by using the Idea ODBC driver, you can also export the information from Idea into any visualization tool, such as Power BI, Tableau, or if you want to get it into Excel, you can do that. So let's go and have a look at what Idea can actually do. So within Idea, there is a new install that you would then install for the Easy add-ons, and that will bring in these 4 buttons for you. Easy import, easy convert, easy integrate, easy BI. Easy extract is not there. Easy extract is on our community, so the same place where the firm guide, the speed guide, all of those is, you can get it there. And the reason for that is your clients might actually want to use that. Okay, then I'm just going to switch off the camera so that I don't see myself, and I can also work with the software a bit more. Then if we look at the actual import, so what we do is we import all of the information into system data. So this is an example of a Sage 300, the sample data file, and we have imported that demo file that they have available for us into IDEA. So there's all the tables. You can see it's quite unrecognizable. You don't really know what it's about. You can see there's some records in there. I can open it and the information will be there, but it might not be too familiar with you. So then what we've done is we then go into Easy Convert and we convert this information into the general ledger data. So you might ask, Christian, but how am I supposed to keep track of all of this? When do I click on which button? And what we have done there for you is within the new document manager, you will now find an IDEA integration folder. In that IDEA integration folder, there is a hyperlink. So if you double click there, it will then open the Easy Integrate page for you, and you would be able to work through the information there. There you can also go and download the Easy Integrate document, and that Easy Integrate document is the document that we will be working now. So after you've downloaded it, you drag and drop it into your document manager, and it will then look something like this. So I've already downloaded it and I've brought it in, so this is then what you would see. And this document then aims to guide you through the whole process of how do you integrate your Caseware IDEA information into Caseware Working Papers, and how do you execute those steps. So it is currently, although we are doing a release, we are leaving it in a beta version because we have tested it on numerous databases internally, and we are happy with the results that we are seeing. But we still want you to test it within your clients. And once we have received enough feedback and made the improvements, if there is any needed, we will then move it from a beta version to a final version. So at this point, if you do extract any information or integrate any information, your databases or your clients' databases might be different. Please get in touch with us. Our support team, our consulting team are there to assist and also to learn from that whole experience. So let's go ahead. We've now imported the data and work through the document together. So we start and we decide whether we want to integrate. If you say no, then that's obviously where you end and we're not going to integrate the data into IDEA. If you say yes, you want to, then we will give you a bit of info or ask you a bit more information. So I'm going to say the Sage 300, I want to integrate with that, and then I will also sign off to say that I have actually done the work. So this signs off with my cloud user ID. I can also change that within the Probe Firm settings to make sure it signs off with my username and password. Then we ask, do you want to use Easy Extract and have the client actually done it? We provide you with another link to Easy Extract on where to download it. You can click it. Once you're done, you can say that you have completed it. We then ask you to save that extract file somewhere on your machine. You do that, you mark it as done. We then tell you to create an IDEA project. Once you've created an IDEA project, we ask you to execute Easy Import. And once you have executed Easy Import, there will also be log entries. So whatever we do with an IDEA, we log everything that we do, and we have two types of log entries. So let me open IDEA so that you can actually see what we do. So there's a log process, and then there's a log process errors. So the log process will tell us when a process is initiated, were there any differences, and were there any issues. So there we can see with Easy Convert, when I did run it, it actually executed with errors, and we can then go into the log process errors, and we can go and have a review and have a look at some of that errors. So there we can see there was an error 1511, a conversion difference, and that says the standard table GL source has been created, but the number of records in the standard table doesn't agree to the primary system table GL SRCE copy. And then you can get a bit more information. The difference in records is 82. So you can have a look at that. Maybe that's text fields, maybe that's information that's not relevant, or maybe it is information that there should be differences in the process, and then that's fine. You can accept that, yes, there's differences. We obviously now have to go and investigate why is there differences between the ledger and the trial balance, but that's part of the procedures we'll show you later. So you then make a decision. Do you want to continue after looking at the log entries, yes or no? If you say no, then you will not be able to continue with the process, and we'll then ask you to either resolve the log issues, or you can then get in touch with us as well if you need help resolving it. If we say yes, we are happy, then we can continue into Easy Convert. So now we are then converting the information. You can say, yes, it is complete. I've reviewed the log entries again, and you are happy with the log entries. Then we ask you to link that project into the IDEA project into Working Papers. You browse to where that project is actually located, and you can then link it. So there under my IDEA projects, there's my Sage 300 file, and I can link it into that specific project. So now my Working Papers and my IDEA file is linked to each other. Now, I do want to say it's important to note we are doing this as part of the assurance kind of session, but this works on any Caseware file. So whether you're a Probe user, an Audit International user, if you don't even use any one of those two products, you can still grab this document, put it in your Caseware file, and you will get the same results. It's not linked to any methodology that we have. You just have to have IDEA and then one of our templates, either financials or assurance. So anyone can really use this. Then we start with our trial balance comparison. So now that we have actually linked the information, we can start doing some tests. And as you click on these buttons, it will go and execute the tests in the Caseware IDEA project. So I'm not going to click on them now because it does take some time to run. It's not too slow, but I don't want us to look at a screen just running, so I've already ran them. But what we do is you run it. It will then execute a trial balance comparison. And what this does is it takes the trial balance within Working Papers, so your Working Papers trial balance, this one, if you have then the information in there, and it then compares it with the trial balance within IDEA that you've imported, because you have now imported the whole ERP into IDEA, but within Working Papers you've only imported a trial balance. So we then compare that information, and in this scenario we had 0 exceptions. So what we show you is per trial balance, this is the differences, there's no differences. These are the number of items that we actually saw per FSA. And then what is interestingly enough, we can see that there are some accounts not assigned to an FSA. These are your unmapped accounts. So you can click there, there's 119 accounts that is unmapped. I can get a summary of that, and I can then see which of those accounts are then not mapped. Okay, so just a quick recap. The trial balance compare then takes a comparison between Working Papers trial balance and the imported trial balance within IDEA, so that you make sure you're working with the right data. Okay, so I'm going to say I'm happy with that. We are now reviewing the comparison results. Are we happy with the results? Yes. And are we satisfied that the trial balances do agree? If we are, we can then continue with the process. If we were not, we will tell you to go and look into the results in a bit more detail, and there will then be an exceptions file for you as well. Now, I don't have any exceptions now, but what would have happened in my scenario is if I ran it, In the trial balance compare, there would have been the information that is also in IDEA, and we bring in those results for you into your working papers file. So in the IDEA integration folder, there's a trial balance compare subfolder, a GL compare, GL understand, and GL procedures. And we then, after execution, brings back, because the two files are linked, the results from IDEA into your working papers file. So you don't have to worry about the IDEA part of it as well. Okay, so all that information, if you don't want to navigate through it with an IDEA, you can also see it in working papers, and that is then part of your evidence. So we are going to say we are happy. We have maybe looked at the exceptions. In our case, there were none, but we did say there were, but we can continue. Did we address any differences? If there were, maybe you then look at that. Then the next step that we do is we execute a general ledger compare. And what we do there is we compare the movement per the general ledger to the system trial balance. So people might think that it should always agree. It's not always the case. So there's my GL compare. I can have a look. In our scenario, again, there's no exceptions, and we can see how it relates to each other. But what we basically do is we regenerate a trial balance for you from the general ledger, and we compare that trial balance with the trial balance that your ERP is actually giving you in the report writer format, so that we can make sure there's no accounts that's not posted or something that went wrong from the general ledger into the trial balance. So now that we're happy that there's no exceptions between working papers and IDEA, and we're happy that there's no exceptions between IDEA, the trial balance, and the actual general ledger, then we can again continue. So I'm going to say we have compared the log entries, there is nothing, and we have completed the results. We've looked at that, and the TV and general ledger actually agree. Then what we want to do is we want to now go and actually understand the general ledger in a bit more detail. So what we then do within IDEA when you execute the GL understand is we go and break up the information into the different financial statement areas. So we break them up for you, and we also do some procedures on the general ledger understand. It's not procedures where you obtain assurance, but it is procedures that can maybe help you with risk assessment, and it's also procedures that will just help you understand what is going on within your general ledger. So there we have a GL understand summary by accounting period. So we can see that there's 8 accounting periods, so definitely not the full year's information. And even accounting period 8, there's only 17 transactions. We can see debits and credits, and there's no differences there. Then we might want to see who created transactions, who's posting. We can see Bongi is the biggest user with 34 million being posted in debits and credits, and those journals all agree. If we then want to see in a bit more detail, to say by FSA, who posted what, we can see that Bongi is basically posting almost on all FSA. John is an inventory, trade receivables, and operating expenses. Sally is also somewhere there. Sally has quite a few of unassigned accounts, so we might want to go and have a look at why did we not assign her accounts in the mapping. And then there's Tando, who has posted as well. So we break it up, and you can then very quickly think about your system subscription. If you're busy with an audit, you can also go and look at the system subscription and say, but is John supposed to be able to post to inventories? Because, well, he did, or maybe even cost of sales. There's only 3 transactions. Why was that posted? And we can also click and get a summary of those 3 transactions. Cool. Then if we want to see by source code, then we can also see from which source codes it came from, where the ERP are using source codes. Then we give you a summary by FSA. And now what's even better is these accounts and amounts will agree with your lead sheets that you have within working papers. So you now have a full view of not only just the accounts that is in working papers, but you can actually drill down and see the actual records and transactions from the lead sheets, or from the transactions that make up the lead sheets. So that 1351 will be the lead sheet amount. And we do that for you per FSA, and you can see all the details there. Okay, so there's still a few then. GL Understand, I'm going to move on. We have worked through GL Understand, we understand the log entries. We are happy to go ahead. And what we also do is, for each one of the procedures that we've executed, we give you an idea of what can you do with the procedure, what can you do with this database that we are providing to you. And we say, so there you can see the volume of transactions per financial statement area, view the aggregate transactions, as well as see debits and credits. And you can then use that information to go through it. We also give you some deeper understanding, just a bit more detail in there. And then we move into the general ledger procedures. So this is now where we actually start and execute procedures on the general ledger and test certain things. So there we have an out of balance journal entry, duplicate journal entry, and then processed at the end of the year. So you choose whether you want to execute those, yes or no. And then within the GL procedures, we will have the information there for you. So there's my GL procedure. So that's all my GL procedures. Are there any duplicate journal entries in this specific database? Yes, there is. There's 179 journal numbers that are actually duplicated. And you can then see, we always sort it by journal number so that we have a consistent format, and we can actually see that that transaction, there's 2 of them. And we can see it's a Wall Street Journal and a CI Marketing Associates. So you might want to go and investigate, why does it have the same journal number, but it does have, it's even on the same date, same amount. So you might want to go and investigate that specific one. The header description is a bit different. And then there's quite a few others that we can see are then duplicated there as well. That one as well. This one is quite a big one, but we then tell you which ones are duplicated. We also provide you with a summary so that you can see, and then there is out of balance journal entries. None of the journal entries are out of balance, so that's a good one. Normally when you see a trial balance not balancing or differences in a trial balance, this is where you would then come and have a look at looking at your GL journals for out of balance transactions. Okay. Then let's have a look at, for example, property, plant and equipment. We can have a look here to say, okay, what transactions actually originated from the general ledger and what originated from the submodules. There's from accounts payable, so these were obviously additions that they bought, and we then also sum it by the source, so all came from accounts payable, and we give you a bit more detail around that and you can work through it. We don't give the, so that's the last part of what we have done to date. We then go and disaggregate each financial statement area. So we first give you a summary of all the financial statement areas that agrees with your lead sheets, and then we go and we actually go and disaggregate them for you as well. So the first split we do is we split between general ledger and submodule. So what transactions originated from the general ledger and what transactions originated from a submodule. Now, if someone is not using an inventory submodule, then we would kind of expect most of it to come from general ledgers. Those are your general ledger journals, what we refer to as general journals. But if they do have an inventory property, plant and equipment module, then most of it should come from the submodule, and maybe just your depreciation journals should be listed as GL journals. So let's look at another example. Operating expenses as an example. There's all my operating expenses. What originated from the GL and what originated from the submodule, and then from the submodule by source code. So what we can see, expenses came into these accounts through accounts payable, through inventory control, through the project management, as well as through the purchase order. Only one through the purchase order, okay, not the biggest amount, but there is one that came in. So again, when we're looking at our system subscription for operating expenses, we might want to ask, so what are the controls? And did we have a system subscription for all 4 of these sources where transactions actually originate? A lot of people, when we're testing revenue, think revenue all comes from the same place, but it actually doesn't. So there we can see, if we look at the original versus submod, let me just look at the summary. Here we are certain all revenue transactions originated from accounts receivable from the submodule. There were a few other journals, we can investigate those journals, but for most of revenue, it actually originated from the accounts receivable module, and then we have a sum there as to what the transactions relate to. So that is quite nice. You can then see what happened in there, and you can get as different, maybe there's different revenue streams, it could come from different places. You can then do that. Okay, so that is what we have done to date on both Sage and Syspro, and we then disaggregate the information. Our next steps that we are going to look at is, first of all, adding a bit more ERPs into the easy extract. So if you have any ideas or thoughts, you're welcome to put those that you want us to look at into the chat, and we'll definitely have a look at what you guys want us to add to that extract button as well. And then we are also looking at how can we, now that the data is disaggregated, do samples for you. So that's something you can look forward to in a later release, maybe the October release, otherwise sometimes next year, but we are going to look at how we can add that as well. Okay, so let me have a look on the questions. So Nanita, is this integration just on those 2 financial systems? Yes, at this point, the integration only works on Sage 300 and Syspro. Again, if you want us to add it to any others, please let us know. We are busy with quite a few in the process, some cloud, some desktop. We're also looking at some Oracle, but if you have a specific ERP that you have in mind, or even if we're also looking at, if it's a client specific one, how we could add that in the future. But if you have a specific one that your firm uses a lot, please tell us, and then we can see what the market wants and then prioritize that. Then nice tool. Why only for the 2 financial systems? So it does take quite a bit of time to extract all of the information, and then we also have to map that information. But as I said, we will definitely also expand on that. Then will this also apply when you import a normal Excel trial balance? So if you import an Excel trial balance into the working paper side, that will then, and we do the, I'm assuming it's about, around the results trial balance comparison, and you then want to compare that to the information you have with an idea, that will work. Any trial balance that you've imported into working papers will then be compared to whatever trial balance and general ledger information you have within idea. Now, remember, it has to be the same accounting package and the same client that we have imported in idea. So to be able to work with that, we need both of those to be the same. Then we have ERP next. Thanks, Franco. We'll definitely have a look at that. And zero accounting, yes, we are definitely having a look at that as well. Okay, so that is then the integration into idea and working papers. You can see I've worked with it mostly within idea, but the results are also documented for me within my working papers file. We don't bring all of the information from Caseware Idea into working papers. We just bring the ones that we feel is relevant, again, open for feedback, but we don't want all of this to then bloat your engagement files again and then make it slower or use a lot of data, but we bring in the ones that we feel is relevant. You could also go into Idea and just send it to the working papers file if you wanted to, if there's specific information you want to have come over. And then these are the ones we generally think that after you've imported to General Ledger, you would most likely do all the work on it, and then you would delete the Idea project or not store it as part of the engagement file, because if that file is reviewed, we don't necessarily want all of the analytics information and General Ledger information in there. You would only want your evidence and the work that you have done on it within the working papers file, and that should then be locked down. So we don't bring everything over, but you can if you want to. Okay, so that I don't see any more questions on the Idea Easy Integrate. So that then brings me to the end there. And then what I will do is move over to our other app, Client Inquiries. I'm just going to close this so that I don't get confused with all the screens. Okay. So Client Inquiries. So what we have received quite a bit of feedback on is people asking us to help with a tool to work with clients and actually manage the client engagement process a bit easier. And we have developed this brand new app called the Client Inquiries app. It is a cloud-only application, and it will allow you to request information and documents from clients. It also allows you to track your client's activity on each of those items that you request, and you can then provide comments to them. They can provide comments to you. All of this is done on cloud, and it can then be accessed by the people who do have access to it. And we've also gone and integrated it within working papers. So how did we integrate it? Once you are integrated with cloud and you have linked your working papers to a cloud entity, and you have also purchased the Client Inquiries app, you will see this section switch on, the queries section. So the first time you will see, I now do see open, but what you would see is actually link or create, and then you either link to a file you have already, or you would create one if you don't yet have it created. So I'll also show you what it looks like on cloud. So on the cloud instance, this is my what's new entity, and there I have two files now. One is my working papers file. This is the one we're currently working in, and then I also have my client inquiries engagement. So on the side, there's now client inquiries once you have bought the client inquiries app as well. So from within working papers, we do have our client inquiries received. I can also click open here, and it will then open it for me within working papers, and I can work with the file here as well. It's just a bit easier for me to demo it in terms of the screen and to actually working with it on a bigger screen here. So I'm going to work with it directly from within cloud, but as I mentioned, you can work with it within working papers as well. So the first thing that we do is we do ask you to complete some information again. So in the engagement in working papers, you'll accept the disclosure. You will answer, there's one of three questions, audit, review, or compilation. Based on those answers, we then tailor the questions that we do ask to your client. So I'm going to select audit for now. Is this a new client or new engagement or not? If it's new, we'll obviously ask for a bit more information, and we won't ask them for a previous year if it's the first year of operations. But if we go ahead and say no, we will ask them for the previous year information as well. Then we have a few options that we can also answer in terms of what queries do we want to send to the client. So we have, by default, we have 4 at the planning stage or beginning stage, and then we'll move on into some of the others per financial statement area. So the cloud entity information. So when you create a new cloud entity, you have all of this information that you need to complete: the phone numbers, the industry, the time and billing, social profiles, contacts, employee information, all of that. So if you then want to ask them to complete it for you, you say yes, and then we will activate that query for them. And you can then send it out, they can complete it, and then you have all of that information. So just make it a bit easier. Then we have a governance and administration information query. So this is what a lot of you guys refer to as your permanent files, and it deals with information such as registration numbers. If I quickly open that, what is the person's role within the entity, any business registration, business activities, ownership, who's management, what committees do they have, minutes, and then who is the accounting team. Okay, going back to my 101 document, any financial information, do we also want them to get the financial information? We can do that. And do we want to do a signed engagement letter? So when we have the signed engagement letter, this is where we give you 3 different options. So you can say, yes, I want to send an engagement letter for signature using our e-sign functionality, or I want to have it using manual sign, or I want to have it using or not send it at all. So if I say manual sign, they will receive it, they will then sign it, scan it, send it back, and you will then receive it in that format. Or when you say using e-sign, we then bring up a new query for you, and you can then send it. So let's go ahead and send this document for e-sign. So the first thing we'll do is, this is the format of a query. We allow you to send some instructions with, and then also we give an instruction to the person that has to do it. So the instruction there is electronically sign the attached engagement letter. So you would go attach your firm's engagement letter, whether it's the probe one, Audit International, or if you have a specific one, and you will then attach that specific query. You can see we create an MD5 hash for that, so that that can then comply. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this specific query to the Chloe Boston. She is, if I quickly go back, the contact linked to this specific entity. So once you've linked your contacts, you can then go and assign that to that entity. And I can go, please sign, and I can also go ahead and click on OK. So that I get a toast notification to say it was sent to all of the contacts in there. I can also, if there's different contacts assigned, just pick the ones that I want to assign it to, and she will now receive that specific item. What I'm also going to do is just show you what they will receive on their end. So if I go to my firm settings and I go to my email and email log, I will be able to see that she has received an email. Let me just make sure that it's sorted by date sent. Okay, it's not yet going through, but the email will then be here, and you'll be able to see that you have sent an email to Chloe and what the actual activity was. Cool. Let's go back, just make sure it was sent. And there's my request for signed engagement letter. Cool, it has been sent. Okay, so Chloe would be able to, will now receive an email, and there will be an activity for her. Once she logs in, she will be able to sign the actual document. And it does show that it is awaiting a response. So while we're waiting, let's also go in and look at the applicable financial statement areas. So We've also added the applicable FSAs. So based on the amounts that your client have and the information you would want to gather from them, you can go ahead and say yes or no to certain of these questions. And you'll see what we've done is we have grouped them into areas that we think generally will be done by a specific user. So there we have capital assets, financial assets, inventories, cash and bank, other assets, financial liabilities, other liabilities, and then revenue, purchase payments, payables, other income, and so forth. So we tried to group them so that you don't send each one of these separate, but you still have a choice. So I'm going to say for property, plant and equipment, I do want to ask and send a query, and then we have another question that comes up that says, okay, so for this accounting records for property, plant and equipment, what do we want to ask? So I'm going to say, I want to ask for a fixed asset register, maybe a depreciation schedule, and if they've done fixed physical counts, I want that information sent. Do I also want to prompt the interviewee about accounting estimates? Now we know not everyone knows what accounting estimates are. Some people might not know what that is, so then you would just go and say, no, I don't want to ask that question, it's maybe too complicated, but most likely in a bigger entity, yes, they do know. Then for presentation and disclosure, do you want to prompt the interviewee to upload the presentation and disclosure for these financial statement areas? You can say yes if you want to, and then that will prompt them to add their accounting policies and how did they actually disclose those. And then we, on the document manager, you'll see a new document popping up, 300.1 requests for information on capital assets, but we also have in here a next step where we guide you to actually go and request the information on capital assets. So again, there is all of the questions showing. I'm going to go ahead and send, and I will then again say let's select for today, and I will type a message, please also upload and answer. And I'm going to say, you can also create a new contact as you see, and I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. Okay, so what they will then see is they're going to get a notification to go and upload, and here you can see that they will then be able to add as many documents as they want into the engagement file. They will be able to answer certain questions for you, and all of that will then come into the engagement file. I can also see how many queries I currently have outstanding within that specific engagement file, and you can then go and track that in terms of what is going on. Now, as I said, you can do that online, but what you would have seen is when we initially started within Working Papers, my document manager was kind of blank on the right-hand side for the cloud entity, but now it has been completed. And I see I haven't been signing off, so let's quickly sign off so that we can also see what's going on there. 3 procedures haven't yet been signed off. I'm going to just say continue now. Just want you to kind of see what happens there on the left. I can see the progress. I can see what's currently happening within the file, and some of those questions are then done. Maybe I'm done with the performing piece as well. And as they then upload the information, these will then start being marked as done. First blue, and then when it's reviewed, it's then also green. Okay, so let's jump back to cloud. There we can see there's a few draft queries that I haven't yet sent out, and then there's the request for signed engagement letter and the request for information that has already been sent, and we're waiting for a response there. Okay, so let's see, there's a few questions. How much does the Caseware client inquiries cost? So that is going to depend on how many of the engagements you buy. So it is priced on a per engagement basis. So if you have 10 clients and you want to do the client inquiries for 8 of those 10, you will only pay for 8. It's not linked to your working papers licenses. It's not linked to any of your cloud licenses. It's based on engagement. So how many of them do you want to do? And then there is tiered pricing. So the more that you do, the cheaper also it gets for you. But what you can do, and I will also take a note, your account manager will be able to send you a quotation on the amount that you then tell them that you would think you would want to do within the firm. So it's going to depend, and remember it is a cloud app, so if you already have the cloud licenses, you wouldn't have to purchase more cloud licenses, but if you don't yet have cloud licenses, you also have to purchase cloud licenses. Is this also applicable to audit systems? So it is applicable to any of, again, the methodologies. You'll see that we have made it quite generic. So it's not, again, linked to any methodology. The type of information you would gather is quite similar. Doesn't matter whether you're on Probe, Audit International, Audit Systems, or even your own firm's methodology. If you need a fixed asset register, you need a fixed asset register. So it's not linked to a methodology. Also, when the procedures come into the engagement file, it will come into the client inquiries received. So you wouldn't have to worry about those client inquiries being not part of your engagement file. So that will come in there. You are then welcome to drag and drop them. Let's say there's a fixed asset register to the fixed asset register section. If that's what you wanted to do, then PPE, drag and drop it into there. But you don't have to worry about them coming in. Okay, will the client need cloud access? So I want to say yes and no if I understand the question correctly. You would have to add your client. Let me just quickly go to the entity. You would have to add your client to the actual entity as a contact. So they would need to have an email and they would be able to set their password and sign in. They will not have to pay for it. You don't have to pay because it's a contact. You don't have to pay for them to have access. That is already included in your staff's cloud licensing fees. So you can add as many cloud contacts as you want and link them into the actual entity and then be able to send queries to them. You don't have that part you don't pay for in terms of contacts, but staff will need a cloud license. So yes, they need cloud access, but they don't need cloud licenses. And you would be able to manage them then here under contacts and not staff. So the two is different. And that contact also then needs access to that specific entity. Okay, I saw some stuff happening while I was within Working Papers. I saw there's a request for signed engagement letter. That is now blue. I can see something happened in there. And I can also see that is blue. So Chloe has responded. So let's go and see what actually happened. So there's my request for the engagement letter. Great. So the engagement letter was actually signed electronically. I can click there to say to actually see the electronic signature. So it is important. This is an electronic signature. It is not a digital signature. It saves the relevant information for it to be compliant with an electronic signature, but it doesn't change the actual document itself. It only saves the information of who signed it, when they signed it, and where they signed it with the document, so kind of next to the document. So we won't expect there to be an actual physical signature on that specific document. It will be next to it. So I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to accept this response and say, thank you very much to Chloe. I'll open that engagement letter. to see more information. So there's my engagement letter. I can see there at the top it was signed electronically. There's the information of when it was signed. I can also download the signature log. But if I scroll all the way down, this did not change. There is no signature there. So no one went and added a signature. I can add, however, an annotation if I wanted to and say signed electronically and save that so that there's a notification or annotation if I wanted to, but you don't necessarily have to. The information is already there. Okay, so just important on what the differences are there. So I've accepted that. And then if I quickly go back to my request for information on capital assets. So there we can see that were there any changes on how transactions are started or recorded? No, so I can accept that response. Nothing will go into my file except if I accept that response. Here I can see investment property, fixed asset register was uploaded. I can go and say accept, and I can go and accept all of the responses there. Oh, there I see Chloe asked they want a bit more example around the accounting policies and notes, and then I can maybe say please do XXX, or this is an example, and I can then respond to Chloe and say this is then what you need to do, or this is an example of what a policy and notes to the financials is, and I can maybe send her a screenshot. Okay, so there's all the responses submitted, and I can go ahead and say I'm marking this query as complete. So what would have happened now? Once this query is complete, I go back to my documents and I can see there's my engagement letter, there's my investment property. So those have now come in, and if I then go back into working papers and I click on receive, you will then see that those documents will then come into your document manager. So there's my engagement letter. I can see it was signed. There's the information then again, and I can also actually see there's my investment property. And if I then look at the status of the queries, I would also be able to see what has happened. So this is a very nice way for you to now manage, without having to look at emails back and forth, what information did you request, what did you receive back from them, is everything complete, and do you actually have all of the information there? And also, if you then have to report back to the client around whether you were waiting for them or something, they would be able to see that you are actually waiting for them. So there we can see the status. We have received those two back, and the others are still in draft. We haven't yet sent them out, but we can if we then want to. Okay, then just on a last one that we also received, or I received a few questions on. These questions that we ask are the questions we think are most relevant. You can obviously go and add questions yourself into, similar to like a firm template, or if you don't have a firm template concept, you don't have, but you want to ask specific questions to this client, you can then also go and do that. So let's quickly open the FSAs one, and I'm going to just say I now also want to do one for financial assets, so that I can show you how you would then do that. So there's my query, and I can just go and click on the plus. And I can say, do I want a new file upload? Do I want a pick list, multi-pick list text? What do I want to do there? I'm going to say, I want a file upload. Add my question there. Please upload. Struggling. Please upload the following, and then they can go ahead and do that for you. So it's that easy to just go and add the information. Okay. Do you get an email confirmation when the client responds to a query, or do you need to go into Caseware each time to see the response? You do get a response. I will quickly see if I can show you what that response then looks like. And so you would get a response into your inbox to say that someone has actually responded to a query that you have sent. That will definitely happen. And can I send a reminder if the client took long to answer? So not currently. We can't currently send reminders, but it is definitely something we are working on to see on how we can improve to, in the future, allow you to send a reminder to them that they actually have queries and tasks available. Okay, so not now, but you will definitely be able to do that in the future. Just quickly looking at the questions. Okay, my Outlook is taking a little bit long to actually show the email, but you will definitely get an email. You can also, if I just go into the activities, you'll also be able to see these activities, and you get emails for these activities as well. So each one of these activities, you will get an email based on those activities. So you'll definitely be able to see those. Okay. Let me quickly see. Can Caseware be installed on a Mac OS? Okay, that's an interesting one. So Caseware itself can't be installed on a Mac OS. However, the client inquiries that we're working with now is cloud-based, so that you can definitely use on a Mac. But also, if you have, I know there is some virtual machine stuff you can do to have Caseware run, but I would maybe leave that question, or Mo can get in touch with you later to maybe understand the requirement a bit more, and then you can yeah, we can answer that one. Okay, I think that then is all the questions. We've gone through the client inquiries now in quite a bit of detail. So as you saw, we create a query, we send it to the contact, they do receive a question, we then respond to the queries, we mark it as responded, we review it, we return, and then we mark it as being complete. And we have gone through all of those steps, and you could also see that it was integrated. Okay, so the last one is based on our extended support hours. Just a quick recap, not really product related, but we have received quite a few questions from you guys around having a bit more support time. So we have now extended the support hours. It used to be 8 to 5, it's now 7 to 7. So if you're sitting after hours now and then struggling with something on Caseware, you're more than welcome to contact our support desk. They are now there, or if you are someone that wakes up very early, you can also get in touch with them, and they are there now in the office to assist. What we've also added is you can now book an appointment. So if you want to chat with the support consultant at a specific point in time, you're welcome to book, and then at that specific time, you'll get a Teams meeting invite, and you can join that, and the support consultant will then be able to meet with you, and you will be able to then chat to them and ask them the question that you have. And as a last reminder, we also have our YouTube page, and we recently had our Get Ahead series at the beginning of the year, and that has finalized, but all of those videos, all of the material is uploaded to our Get Ahead playlist within the Caseware Africa YouTube channel. So if you haven't yet watched it, or if you're getting new stuff, please refer them to that. There is 3 different streams: the working papers and financial statements, and then Audit International and Probe. So you can focus on the ones that you actually then want to watch. Cool. So with that, it brings us to the end of the webinar. If there's any chats or questions we haven't responded to, we'll have a look at it after the session. Just make sure we get in touch. And then thank you so much for your time. Really hope that you enjoy the new releases. Looking forward to getting your feedback on our new apps as well. And please get in touch if you have any thoughts or ideas as well. We as product managers also do rely on you to tell us what you need from us and how we can assist you better in the future. So with that, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great